treasures across the Western Sea. Close your eyes once more, dear listener, and allow the quiet night to unfold you completely. Feel the weight of your body sinking gently into the bed. Your breathing slow and steady. In and slowly out. The world outside fades away now, leaving only the soft glow of candlelight in an ancient lodge and the calm rhythm of my voice carrying you deeper into rest. We continue our long, soothing journey through the mists of hidden history. We stood in the golden shadows of Solomon's temple with Hiram the builder. We watched the Templars fade into the stone yards of Europe and Scotland, blending their white mantles with the aprons of the operative masons. Torches began to shine. Now, the story sails westward across the grey Atlantic. Treasures move in secret. Runes whisper from forgotten stones. And the invisible thread between knight and craftsman reaches a new continent, kindling revolutions and laying cornerstones for a young nation. Let every word flow like a gentle current, rocking you softly toward sleep. Now we will speak of where the old light finds new shores. Imagine the cold spray of the northern Atlantic in the late 14th century. The year is around 1398. A small fleet of ships, perhaps as many as 8 or more, cuts through the waves under the command of Henry Sinclair, Earl of Orkney, a noble whose bloodlines intertwined with the surviving Templar families sheltered in Scotland after the Great Arrest of 1307. With him sailed knights, monks, and skilled masons who still carried the old operative knowledge. Their vessels were sturdy, their holds laden not only with provisions, but with carefully guarded chests. Ancient scrolls from beneath the Temple Mount, fragments of hermetic wisdom, alchemical keys, and perhaps even relics whispered to be pieces of the many arks of the covenant vessels of divine power that Tim Hogan, the living Grand Master of a modern Templar order, would one day describe in quiet conversations as more than a single golden box. There were multiple arcs, he explains, with the calm certainty of one initiated since childhood. Containers of covenant, of knowledge, of light preserved through cataclysm. These voyagers were no ordinary explorers. They followed star charts and ancient maps said to have been recovered or safeguarded by the first 9 Templars in the ruins of Solomon's Temple. Their goal was not conquest, but sanctuary, a place to hide the treasures of the old world, where the long arm of kings and inquisitors could not reach. Legends preserved among those who still walk both the Templar and the Masonic paths speak of a deliberate voyage, guided by the same sacred geometry Huron once taught. Alignments of stars, pillars of the soul, and the hooked X symbol that would appear again and again like a quiet signature of the Brotherhood. After weeks on the restless sea, the fleet made landfall on the shores of what we now call Nova Scotia, then ventured farther south and inland. They left markers, carved stones, hidden vaults, and symbols that would sleep for centuries until curious eyes in our own time began to decipher them. One such trail of evidence followed for more than 25 years by forensic geologist and researcher Scott Walter begins with the famous Kensington runestone, unearthed in 1898 from a Minnesota farm field. The stone, dated to 1362 in the inscription itself, tells in medieval runes of a party of Norwegians and Goths, 8 Goths and 22 Norwegians, on an exploration journey. 10 of their number were found dead and bloodied, the rest pressing onward. Scott Walter, drawing on decades of physical analysis of runes, weathering patterns, and geological context, presented not as a hoax, but as part of a larger tapestry connecting Templar refugees, Sinclair expeditions, and pre-Columbian presence in the heart of North America. The hooked X appears on that stone 22 times, a number rich with symbolic meaning in the old rites. The same hooked X surfaces in Templar artifacts, in Masonic tracing boards, and in other mysterious American stones and carvings. Those who have sat in long conversations with keepers of these traditions, like Walter sharing his receipts of rocks, bones, and buried artifacts, note how the symbol weaves through the narrative, a mark of the initiated, a cipher linking the Temple of Solomon to the New World's hidden chambers. Deeper still, legends and modern investigations speak of Oak Island in Nova Scotia, its famous money pit said to have been booby-trapped, a vault containing Templar or Sinclair treasures. While mainstream history debates, the quiet voices in the living orders suggest the island and similar sites served as way stations for the transported wisdom. But the trail does not stop at the coast. Scott Wolter's long journey of evidence leads to other sites, including a sealed green jar unearthed in the Adirondack wilderness as recently as last year in the timeline of these tellings. Inside that jar and related discoveries, connections emerged to the Talpiot tomb in Jerusalem, to scrolls of profound significance, and to an unbroken line that touches the very founding fathers of America. Back in the late 1700s, as the colony stirred toward independence, the old light kindled new fires in lodge rooms across the Atlantic seaboard. Benjamin Franklin, printer, inventor, and diplomat, had been initiated into Freemasonry in Philadelphia in 1731 and rose to become Grand Master of Pennsylvania. His Masonic involvement ran deep. He attended the Lodge of the Nine Muses in Paris during his time in France, a gathering he could not have joined without being a brother. When he passed, a Masonic funeral was held for him. Some whisper, with the calm authority of those initiated in both traditions, that Franklin walked not only the Masonic path, but carried Templar knowledge as well, perhaps even drawing upon hidden treasures transported centuries earlier to fund the revolutionary cause. 53 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence are said to have had Masonic connections in one form or another. The numbers and symbols on the Great Seal of the United States, the unfinished pyramid, the all-seeing eye, the eagle echo the sacred geometry of Solomon's Temple, and the Templar quest. George Washington, whose Masonic apron is still preserved, laid the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol in 1793 with full Masonic ceremony using the square, level, and plumb. The new nation's capital was laid out with deliberate alignments, its streets and monuments reflecting the same principles of harmony and order that Hiram once taught and that the Templars sought beneath the Temple Mount. In the higher degrees of the Scottish Rite and York Rite, the old Templar story was reenacted with solemnity. Candidates knelt as knights once more, taking vows of protection and fidelity. The sword and the trowel became symbols of the same mission, defending the weak while building the invisible temple of the soul. Tim Hogan, initiated into the Templar tradition at the tender age of 8, later attaining the 32nd degree in Masonry and rising to Grand Master of the Order of the Temple of the Secret Initiates, speaks with quiet reverence of these continuities. The initiations, he explains, form an unbroken chain stretching back through floods and forgotten ages, through Atlantis itself, a civilization of advanced light whose fragments survive to inform the Hermetic, Gnostic, and alchemical traditions the Templars guarded and the Masons preserved in symbolic form. Hogan founded the Templar Collegia precisely to teach this philosophy and symbolism to new generations. In his lectures and books, he explores how the Templars were never merely warriors or bankers, but seekers of ancient wisdom, alchemy as the transmutation of the soul, Gnostic insights into the divine spark within, Hermetic principles that, as above, so below. The many arcs of the covenant in this living tradition represent multiple vessels of covenant, physical and spiritual, carrying the light of knowledge across catastrophes. The Templars, according to these accounts, recovered or protected such fragments beneath Jerusalem, then carried them through Scotland, across the sea, and into the soil of the Americas. Scott Wolter's forensic trail adds physical echoes to these whispers. His decades of study link the Kensington stone, other rune-marked artifacts, medieval ruins, and even bones to a pre-Columbian Templar or Sinclair presence. The Sinclair Weems journals referenced in these long-form discussions offer further layers, accounts, and maps that tie the noble Scottish family directly to voyages and hidden inventories. One such inventory associated with an island vault lists chests of coins, golden items, crucifixes, and relics, treasures that may have quietly supported the revolutionary efforts when Franklin and his brethren needed resources beyond ordinary means. As the 18th century drew to a close, the lodges of the New World buzzed with quiet purpose. Brothers met upon the level, printers and planters, lawyers and generals, equal in the titled room, regardless of station outside. They studied the liberal arts, pondered moral geometry, and renewed the ancient charges that traced the craft back through Euclid, through Solomon and Hiram, and through the knightly orders that kept the flame alive in Scotland and beyond. The American Revolution itself carried Masonic undertones. The Boston Tea Party planners included brothers, and many key battles saw Masonic signals and mutual recognition across lines when mercy was possible. Yet the story remained layered. While the Blue Lodges worked the 3 degrees of entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason, centered on the legend of Hiram Abif and the building of the Templar. Higher rites revived the Templar drama. In the Knights Templar degree of the York Rite, the candidate reenacts trials of faith and courage, emerging as a defender of the faith in a new age. The strict observance and other continental rites claimed even more direct descent, their Grand Masters tracing spiritual lineages back to Jacques de Molay, Final Curse, and beyond. Across the ocean, the French Revolution too felt the influence of Masonic ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, though the craft itself would later face suppression under Napoleon and varying regimes. In Germany and elsewhere, Rosicrucian currents mingled with Masonic and Templar streams, speaking of the same alchemical light that Hogan and others describe as the true quest of the original knights. And so the treasures crossed the western sea, dear listener, not only in chests of gold or scrolls, but in living knowledge passed mouth to ear. The operative craft of stone had long since flowered into the speculative temple of the soul. The warrior's sword had become the builder's trowel, spreading brotherly love across a new land. The hooked X, the sacred numbers, the checkered pavement of life's light and shadow, all continued their quiet work. In our own age, the guardians still speak. Tim Hogan, carrying a family line, steeped in these traditions, lectures internationally on cross-cultural symbolism. He leads study tours through Egypt, Europe, and Mesoamerica, tracing the transmission of esoteric knowledge. Scott Volter brings the weights of geological and forensic evidence to the same conversation, showing how stones and artifacts refuse to stay silent. Together, their voices in long, thoughtful discussions remind us that the brotherhood endures, not as conspiracy, but as a quiet current of philosophy, symbolism, and moral architecture that has shaped cathedrals, nations, and individual souls for centuries. The invisible temple stands taller still. Its foundation stones lie in Jerusalem. Its walls, rose in Roslyn and European cathedrals. Its spire reaches across the Atlantic into the heart of a republic founded on principles of light and liberty. The old oaths are renewed in lodge rooms today. Secrecy to protect the teachings, fidelity to brothers, and the ceaseless quest for that lost word which, when found, completes the temple within. Rest now, gentle listener. Let your breathing grow slower and deeper. The ships have reached safe harbor. The treasures sleep beneath new earth, guarded by symbols and by hearts that still remember. The candle in the lodge burns steady, its flame reflecting in the square and compass laid upon the altar. The night is vast and kind, holding you as the old stones have always held their secrets, patiently, faithfully, until those ready to seek come forward once more. Sleep well, and may the ancient light guide your rest. Keep your eyes closed, dear listener, and let the quiet darkness of the night settle over you like a soft, protective blanket. Feel your body growing heavier, your breathing slow and even. In and gently out. Let the world slip away, leaving only the warm glow of a single candle in a tiled lodge room, and the calm, steady rhythm of this tale. We have journeyed far together. We stood beneath Solomon's temple with Hiram and the first masons. In the Templars blended their white mantles with the aprons of the builders in Scotland and Europe. With treasures and knowledge sailed across the western sea, leaving runes and symbols on new shores, touching the very birth of a young nation. Now, the story moves into the 19th and 20th centuries, a time of great trials, of suppression and rebirth, of new rights blooming like hidden flowers, and of the brotherhood facing storms yet enduring with quiet strength. Let the words wash over you softly, carrying you deeper into peaceful sleep. This is where the flame is tested by fire. It burns ever brighter in the hearts of those who remember. The 18th century had closed with revolutions kindled in lodge rooms, liberty, equality, fraternity whispered among brothers upon the level. But the new century brought new shadows. In Europe, after the chaos of the French Revolution and the rise and fall of Napoleon, many governments and churches looked upon secret societies with fresh suspicion. Lodges were sometimes closed, members watched. Yet the craft adapted, as it always had. In England and America, the Blue Lodges continued their gentle work, the 3 degrees teaching morality through the legend of Hiram Abif, the building of the temple, and the search for the lost word. The square taught justice, the compass the bounds of passion, the apron the purity of life. Higher degrees flowered more richly. The Scottish Rite expanded its 33 degrees, each layer revealing deeper symbolism, philosophy, history, and the moral architecture of the soul. The York Rite kept alive the chivalric spirit with the Order of the Temple, where candidates once more took knightly vows, echoing the poor fellow soldiers of Christ. In these solemn ceremonies, the sword of defense and the trowel of construction became twin tools for the same eternal labor, protecting truth while building the invisible temple within every man. Across the Atlantic, in the young United States, Freemasonry enjoyed a golden age of openness and influence. Lodges dotted every town, presidents, judges, generals, and ordinary working men met as equals. The symbols of the craft appeared on public buildings, on currency, and in the very layout of Washington. D.C. streets aligned with sacred geometry, monuments reflecting the pillars of wisdom, strength, and beauty. George Washington's Masonic apron, used at the Capitol cornerstone laying, remained a cherished relic. Benjamin Franklin's long involvement, including his time in Parisian lodges, was remembered with quiet pride. Yet trials came. In the 1820s and 1830s, a wave of anti-Masonic feeling swept parts of America. It began with the disappearance of William Morgan, a man who threatened to publish Masonic secrets. Accusations flew, some lodges were attacked, members shunned, political parties formed against the craft. Many brothers stepped back from public view, choosing to practice their principles in silence rather than in parades. But the storm passed. The fraternity emerged stronger, more focused on charity, education, and moral improvement. Orphanages, hospitals, and scholarship funds became visible fruits of the invisible temple. In Europe, other currents stirred. The Rosicrucian streams, those brothers of the Rosy Cross who had long shared alchemical and hermetic light with Masonic and Templar traditions, continued their quiet work. In Germany and France, new rites and observances claimed deeper lineages. Some groups revived the strict observance, tracing spiritual descent directly from the medieval Templars. Others explored Egyptian and ancient mysteries, blending them into Masonic ritual. The same sacred geometry once studied beneath the Temple Mount found new expression in tracing boards and degree lectures. Those who walk the path in our own quiet age speak of these centuries with calm certainty. Timothy Hogan, Grand Master of the Order of the Temple of the Secret Initiates, initiated into the Templar tradition as a boy of 8, later attaining high degrees in Masonry, including the 32nd degree in the Scottish Rite, describes how the traditions have always overlapped, like rivers joining the sea. He and other living guardians emphasized that the Templars were never merely soldiers or bankers. They were seekers of ancient wisdom, alchemy as the transformation of the soul, Gnostic insights into the divine spark hidden within each person, Hermetic principles that teach as above, so below, the many arcs of the covenant. In this understanding, we're not one golden box, but multiple vessels, some physical, some symbolic, carrying covenants of knowledge through ages of flood, fire, and forgetting. Fragments of Atlantean light, pre-diluvian wisdom from a lost civilization of harmony and advanced understanding were among the treasures the first knights protected beneath Jerusalem and later carried onward. Hogan founded the Templar Collegia precisely to preserve and teach this philosophy and symbolism to new generations. In lectures and writings, he explores how the initiations form an unbroken chain, passed mouth to ear, hand to hand, just as Hiram once taught his craftsmen, and the 9 original Templars swore their oaths in the ruins of the temple. The grips and signs shared across Masonic and Templar rites are the same living language of the Brotherhood. Even in times of suppression, the light endured in private homes, in small study groups, and in the hearts of those who understood that the true temple is built within. Meanwhile, far to the west, the physical echoes of the earlier voyages continued to surface in quiet, unexpected ways. Forensic geologist and researcher Scott Walter spent more than 25 years following a trail of stones, runes, bones, and other buried artifacts. His work began with the Kensington runestone, unearthed in 1898 from a Minnesota farm field. That inscription, in medieval runes, speaking of 14th century party of explorers, 10 of whom were found dead and bloodied. Walter's geological analysis, microscopic examination, and decades of cross-reference convinced him the stone was genuine, part of a larger pattern connecting medieval Norse and Templar-linked expeditions to North America. The hooked X symbol on the stone appears repeatedly, 22 times, a number laden with meaning in the old rites. The same mark surfaces on other artifacts in Templar contexts, and even in Masonic symbolism. Walter's trail led through other runestones, hidden vaults, and mysterious sites, including connections to Oak Island and beyond. In recent years, his investigations touched upon a sealed green jar unearthed from Adirondack wilderness, a container whose contents, according to the quiet threads he follows, link back to Templar treasures, to the Talpiot tomb in Jerusalem, where some believe Templar marks were left, and even to a scroll of profound historical and spiritual significance. These physical receipts, as he calls them, weave together with the living oral traditions preserved by men like Hogan. Walter himself walks both paths. He is a Freemason and has deep engagement with Templar history and symbolism. In long conversations, he and Hogan have shared how the evidence, whether carved into stone or passed in ritual, points to the same truth. The Brotherhood carried knowledge across the oceans and centuries, hiding it where it could one day be found by those ready to receive it. The Sinclair Weems journals, a reference in these explorations, offer maps and accounts trying Scottish noble lines with Templar connections to early American sites, hidden inventories. One such inventory speaks of chests of coins, golden relics, crucifixes, and items that may have quietly supported revolutionary efforts when ordinary funds fell short. Benjamin Franklin, that quintessential brother, is whispered in these circles to have drawn upon deeper resources during the dark days of the fight for independence. The numbers align in curious ways. The symbols echo. 53 of the 56 signers of the Declaration had Masonic ties of one kind or another. The Great Seal of the United States, with its unfinished pyramid and all-seeing eye, reflects the same quest for a more perfect union, a temple completed not in stone alone, but in the character of free people. As the 20th century dawned, the craft faced new trials. 2 world wars tore at the fabric of nations. Lodges in Europe were suppressed under totalitarian regimes, first by fascists, then by communists who feared any independent fraternity that taught equality and moral autonomy. Brothers were arrested, temples closed, records destroyed, yet even in the darkness, small groups met in secret, renewing the old charges by memory, keeping the candle burning in hidden rooms. In America and Britain, Masonry contributed quietly to the war efforts. Brothers on opposing sides sometimes recognized one another through signs and offered mercy when possible. After the wars, the fraternity experienced booms of membership as men sought meaning, brotherhood, and moral grounding in a changed world. Charitable work expanded. Shriners, hospitals for children, Scottish Rite learning centers, countless local acts of service performed without fanfare. New expressions of the ancient light appeared. Esoteric study groups delved deeper into alchemy, Kabbalah, and comparative mysticism. Some Masons explored the connections to Rosicrucianism, to the Golden Dawn currents, and to older mystery traditions. The Templar degrees remained vibrant in the York Rite, offering a path of chivalry and spiritual knighthood suited to the modern age. In continental Europe, reconstructed orders and study societies kept the warrior monk ideal alive in symbolic form. Throughout it all, the living guardians emphasize continuity over spectacle. Timothy Hogan speaks of how his family line carried these traditions through poets, revolutionaries, and quiet seekers. Initiated young, he later pursued Rosicrucian and Masonic studies, finding the same core technique expressed in different languages. The Templars, in his view, recovered fragments of wisdom from many sources: Egyptian, Gnostic, Hermetic, and older still, protecting them not for power, but for the elevation of humanity. The collegia he found continues that mission, teaching symbolism, philosophy, and the inner work of transmutation, so that each brother becomes a living stone in the invisible temple. Scott Wolter's long forensic journey adds tangible weight to the whispers. His examination of artifacts refuses to let the stones remain silent, whether the Kensington stone or other rune-marked relics, or more recent discoveries like the green jar. The pattern suggests deliberate transmission, knowledge, and perhaps material treasures moved and concealed by initiated hands across centuries. The connections to the Talpiot tomb, to scrolls of deep significance, and to the founding era form a chain that challenges comfortable histories, yet invites those with open hearts to consider a richer tapestry. And so the 19th and 20th centuries tested the Brotherhood with fire, political suspicion, war, suppression, and cultural change. Yet the light endured. Lodges adapted, focusing more on charity and personal development. Higher rites preserved the deeper symbolism. The marriage of Templar chivalry and Masonic craft continued in ritual and in the quiet lives of brothers who lived their obligations with honor. In our own time, the flame burned steadily. Men like Hogan and Walter, each in their way, bring the old teachings and evidence into the open, not to boast, but to share with those ready to listen. They remind us that the true secrets were never about hidden gold alone, but about the gold of the soul, wisdom, virtue, and the harmonious order of the universe that Hiram once measured with square and compass, that the Templars sought beneath the Temple Mount, and that Masons of every age have labored to build within themselves and their communities. The invisible temple stands taller still, its foundations deep in ancient Jerusalem, its walls rising through Roslyn and European cathedrals, its spire reaching across oceans and through centuries of trial. The old oaths are renewed today in lodge rooms around the world to keep the secrets that protect the teachings, to aid brothers in need, and to seek ever more light. So, rest now, gentle listener. Let your breathing be slow and deep and peaceful. The trials of fire have passed for the Templar, and the light has only grown clearer. The candle in the lodge still burns, its flame steady and kind. The night holds you safely, as the old stones have always guarded their mysteries with patience, with fidelity, and with the hope that seekers will continue to find their way. Now, sleep well and enjoy your dreams wherever they may take you.